There is a force coiled at the base of your spine, sleeping in the silence of your bones, waiting for the moment when the veil between the seen and unseen grows thin. It is ancient, older than the first breath of the first human, older than the myths that try to name it. This is Kundalini, the serpent power, the dormant fire, the unspoken revolution of consciousness that rewrites the body, bends perception, and shatters the illusion of a separate self. But what no one tells you is that her awakening is not merely a metaphor, not just a poetic idea whispered in esoteric circles. It is a visceral, electrifying, often terrifying alchemy of flesh and spirit, where the boundaries of reality itself begin to dissolve. Imagine, for a moment, that everything you've been told about spiritual awakening is only half the story. The light, the bliss, the transcendent visions, they are real, yes, but they are only fragments of a far more complex tapestry. No one warns you about the trembling limbs, the sudden surges of heat like liquid lightning climbing your spine, the nights when your body thrums with an energy that defies sleep, as if every cell has been plugged into some cosmic current. No one prepares you for the way time might warp, how déjà vu could become a daily companion, or how the faces of strangers might suddenly carry the weight of lifetimes. Kundalini does not ask permission. She rises when she is ready, and when she does, the ground beneath your feet is no longer solid. This is the uncharted territory, the shadow side of ecstasy, the unspoken tremors of transformation. It is not just about higher states of consciousness, but about the body's rebellion against the limits you once accepted. It is about the sudden knowing that you are not just in the universe, but that the universe is in you, and that this realization is not always gentle. Sometimes it arrives like a storm, shaking loose everything you thought was fixed, everything you believed was you. Yet, for all its intensity, Kundalini's awakening is not chaos, it is an intelligence, a kind of divine surgery. She knows where the blocks are, where the wounds have fossilized, where the lies you've told yourself have taken root. And she moves with precision, unraveling them, sometimes with grace, sometimes with what feels like violence. The process is not linear. It spirals, loops, drags you through forgotten chambers of memory, then lifts you into spaces where language fails. You may find yourself weeping without reason, laughing at the absurdity of existence, or trembling before the sheer immensity of what is being asked of you, to die, again and again, into a vaster life. And so we begin here, at the threshold, where the known world ends and the uncharted begins. If you have felt these stirrings, if you have sensed the serpent shifting in the dark, then you already know this is not a path for the faint of heart. But it is a path of homecoming, of remembering what you truly are. If these words resonate with you, if you feel the pull toward the mysteries waiting to be unveiled, then I invite you to join this journey. Like, comment, and subscribe if you wish to delve deeper into the hidden layers of Kundalini's awakening. Your presence here is no accident. The serpent recognizes its own. To speak of Kundalini is to speak of a force that defies simple definition. It is both a biological current and a cosmic whisper, a physiological phenomenon and a mythic journey. It exists in the liminal space between the tangible and the ineffable, where the body's nerves hum with the same frequency as the stars. But before we can fully grasp its mysteries, we must first understand the foundational truths that govern its movement, the hidden laws that shape its path through the human form. At its core, Kundalini is the primal energy of creation itself, the same force that spun galaxies into being now coiled at the root of your spine. In the ancient traditions, she is depicted as a sleeping serpent, not by accident, but because the serpent is the ultimate symbol of transformation. It sheds its skin, dies to its old form, and emerges renewed. So too does the awakening of Kundalini demand a shedding of illusions, of identities, of the stories we've mistaken for truth. But what no one tells you is that this shedding is not always voluntary. Kundalini does not wait for your readiness. She rises when the soul demands it, and the mind is left scrambling to make sense of a process that transcends logic. One of the most startling revelations of this awakening is the sheer physicality of it. Modern spirituality often speaks of enlightenment as a transcendent escape from the body, but Kundalini forces you deeper into the flesh. You may feel heat flaring along the spine, electric currents dancing beneath the skin, pressure in the skull as if something is being rewired. The body becomes a battleground between old energy and new, between the weight of the past and the pull of an unknown future. This is not metaphor. It is biology alchemized, a literal rewiring of the nervous system to hold higher voltages of awareness. Yet, alongside the physical, there is an equally profound shift in perception. Reality itself becomes fluid. Synchronicities multiply numbers, symbols, echoes of thought and event that defy coincidence. Time may stretch or collapse. Déjà vu becomes a doorway rather than a glitch. Some report sudden access to forgotten memories, past life flashes, or an uncanny sensitivity to the emotions of others. This is the dissolution of the illusion of separation. Kundalini does not merely awaken you, it awakens you to the interconnected fabric of existence, where the boundaries between self and other, past and present, begin to blur. But perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of this process is its duality. Kundalini is not just light, it is also shadow. The same energy that brings ecstatic union can also unearth repressed trauma, unresolved grief, the hidden fears you've buried beneath a lifetime of distractions. This is why so many describe the awakening as both blissful and terrifying, because it demands wholeness. It will not let you cling to only the parts of yourself you deem acceptable. It pulls everything into the light, and the process of integration is rarely smooth. Underlying all of this is the principle of intelligent energy. Kundalini is not random, it moves with purpose, following the pathways of your unique karma, your soul's unfinished business. It knows where you are blocked, where you are fragmented, and it presses precisely on those points until something breaks open. This is why no two awakenings are alike. For one, it may begin with a surge of creative inspiration. For another, a sudden health crisis that forces a reckoning with the body. The form varies, but the essence remains: a call to evolve, to surrender, to become more than you were. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter. Kundalini is not something you achieve, it is something you surrender to. It is the intelligence of life itself, the force that has been breathing you all along, now turning its gaze inward, asking you to participate fully in your own becoming. To trace the path of Kundalini through myth and symbol is to realize that this force has always been here, coiled not just in the human body, but in the collective unconscious, whispering through the stories we tell ourselves about creation, destruction, and rebirth. The serpent is not merely an image, it is an archetype, a living thread woven into the tapestry of human awakening across cultures, epochs, and spiritual traditions. And yet, beneath the surface of these tales lies a truth far more potent than mere allegory. Consider the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail, an ancient emblem of cyclicality, of the eternal return. It is no coincidence that this symbol appears in Egyptian mysticism, Greek alchemy, and Hindu Tantra. The serpent that eats itself is the same force that awakens within you, a loop of energy that consumes the old self to birth the new. But what the myths often leave out is the ferocity of this process. The Ouroboros does not gently dissolve, it burns, and so does Kundalini. The bliss of expansion is inseparable from the agony of dissolution, for you cannot become what you are meant to be without first ceasing to be what you were. In the Yogic traditions, Kundalini is Shakti, the divine feminine energy rising to meet Shiva, the silent, unmoving awareness at the crown of the head. Their union is enlightenment, the marriage of motion and stillness, form and emptiness. But the Tantric texts rarely speak of what happens when Shakti rebels, when her ascent is not a graceful dance but a wildfire. There are stories, hidden in the margins, of yogis driven mad by her untamed force, of bodies that could not contain the voltage of her touch. These are not warnings, but acknowledgements the serpent does not guarantee safe passage. She guarantees truth, and truth is not always kind. Then there is the biblical serpent in the Garden of Eden, so often vilified as the tempter, the deceiver. But in the esoteric readings, this serpent is the bringer of gnosis, the one who shatters the illusion of innocence by offering the fruit of knowing. Is this not the essence of Kundalini? To awaken is to fall from the garden of ignorance, to taste the unbearable weight of your own divinity, and to carry that knowledge like a burning coal in your chest for the rest of your days. Even beyond these traditions, the serpent appears in the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl, in the dragon lines of the earth's ley energies, in the caduceus of Hermes, where two serpents entwine around the spine of the world. Everywhere, the message is the same. There is a force that moves between worlds, that slithers beneath the surface of things, and to encounter it is to be changed irrevocably. But the most potent symbol of all is the one you cannot see the serpent inside you. It is the unbroken lineage of life itself, the same force that animated the first single-celled organisms, that guided evolution toward consciousness, that now stirs in your belly, hissing, "Remember." The great paradox of Kundalini awakening is this: while the experience itself shatters ordinary reality, you must still navigate the grocery store, the morning commute, the small talk with neighbors who have no idea you feel lightning in your veins. How does one live with a foot in two worlds, the mundane and the mystical, without tearing apart at the seams? The answer is not transcendence, but embodiment, the slow, often messy alchemy of bringing the infinite into the finite, of letting the divine current ground itself through your daily life. First, the body. It is the anchor, the vessel, and often the first battlefield. When Kundalini surges, the nervous system undergoes a metamorphosis. Some call it an upgrade, though in the moment it may feel more like a system overload. Insomnia, heat flashes, involuntary muscle spasms, heart palpitations, with no medical cause. These are not signs of malfunction, but of recalibration. The key is not to resist, but to channel. Simple practices become lifelines. Walking barefoot on earth to discharge excess energy, submerging hands or feet in cold water to cool the system, breathwork that focuses on extending the exhale to soothe the overstimulated nerves. This is not about controlling the energy, but about creating pathways for it to move without destruction. Then there is the mind, which will scramble to interpret what is happening, to fit the unfathomable into familiar boxes. It may label the experience as psychosis, as a medical crisis, as supernatural intervention, all of which miss the point. Kundalini defies categorization. The mind's job is not to understand, but to witness. Journaling becomes essential, not to analyze, but to give the ineffable a voice before it burns its way out. Dreams may intensify, symbols may arise. Keep a notebook by the bed. The unconscious is speaking in the only language it knows. Relationships will shift. Some bonds will dissolve, not out of malice, but because they were built on versions of you that no longer exist. Others will deepen unexpectedly, as if the energy itself magnetizes those who can meet you in this new frequency. There is an art to navigating this. Speak your truth, but not at the volume of a hurricane. Not everyone is ready to hear that reality is malleable, that the divine is breathing through their coworker, that the ache in their chest is the same force that births stars. Meet people where they are. even as you travel beyond. Work, too, may demand reinvention. The awakening often exposes how much of life has been spent in misalignment jobs that drain the soul, routines that numb the spirit. Not everyone can or should quit their job and move to an ashram, but small rebellions become necessary. Perhaps it's carving out 10 minutes of silence before checking emails, or turning a commute into a meditation, or finally starting that project that feels like prayer. Kundalini does not tolerate inauthenticity forever. It will press against the walls of your life until something gives. And then there are the dark nights, the moments when the energy recedes, when the visions fade, and you are left in what feels like spiritual barrenness. This is not failure, but digestion. The psyche can only absorb so much light at once. These fallow periods are when the real integration happens, when the revelations sink from the ethereal into the cellular. Trust the emptiness. It, too, is part of the path. There is a moment in every great alchemical process when the lead knows it must become gold, not through force, but through surrender. This is where you stand now, at the precipice between what was and what will be, between the self you constructed and the self that has always been. Kundalini awakening is not a destination, but a doorway. And the only way through is to stop seeking an after, to realize that the fire along your spine is not leading you somewhere else, but deeper into here, into the raw, unedited truth of your existence. What no one told you is that enlightenment is not a state of perpetual bliss, but of perpetual presence. The ecstasies will come and go. The dark nights will rise and pass. The body will hum and ache and recalibrate. Through it all, the invitation remains the same. Show up for this moment exactly as you are. Not as the perfect sage, not as the flawless channel of divine light, but as the human being who forgot to eat lunch because the sky looked too much like God today, who snapped at a loved one because the energy was too much to hold, who still wonders sometimes if this is all real or just a beautiful madness. Kundalini does not ask for your perfection, it asks for your honesty. This is the great secret they don't write about in the scriptures. Awakening is not about transcending humanity, but about inhabiting it so fully that the divine has no choice but to shine through the cracks. Your quirks, your wounds, your irrational loves, these are not obstacles to the path, but the path itself. The Tantrics knew this. They did not renounce the world. They worshipped it in the curve of a lover's hip, in the taste of ripe fruit, in the sweat of labor and the ache of muscle. They understood that the serpent's ultimate destination was not escape from the body, but the sanctification of it. So if you take nothing else from this journey, let it be this: you are not broken. The anxiety, the doubt, the times when you feel like you're losing your grip, these are not signs that you're failing at awakening. They are proof that you're alive in it. The most profound transformations are not the ones that lift you out of your humanity, but the ones that teach you how to kneel in the messy, glorious heart of it. Now, the call, not to seek more, but to digest what has already been given, to sit with the revelations that have shaken you, to let them take root in your daily life, not as dogma, but as lived truth. And when the energy feels like too much, remember, the serpent knows the way. You don't have to control it, you just have to trust it. If this journey has resonated with you, if these words have mirrored something hidden in your bones, then the conversation does not end here. Share your story in the comments, not just the light, but the shadows too. Let this be a sanctuary for the full spectrum of awakening. Subscribe if you crave deeper explorations, because the path never truly ends, it only unfolds. And if you know someone who is trembling on the edge of their own becoming, pass this along. The serpent recognizes its own. The gate is open. Walk through.